themes and messages that these films surface in the world. So that's a really cool element. All right, so freshmen are still in the back. Let me see, are we good online? We're still waiting to go live. I just want to make sure we get all the introductions on the recording because that's an important part. Yeah, and again, we are a social media encouraging church, so we even encourage it during the messages and the music when you are a part of us on Sunday, because we believe there is positivity in social media, and that's how people connect to what's going on. So you can find us at We Are The Quest on all of the social medias, and please tag us, follow us. We're good. Okay, great. All right, well, welcome, everybody. If you're just joining us online, this will be forever on our YouTube pages, so watch what you say. My name is Tony Gapastone. I am the co-pastor of The Quest here. My pronouns are he, him, his. And we just watched Re-Entrification, which was a great documentary about the housing challenges here in the Bay Area with some awesome spoken word and culture and history. So I'm going to have you all introduce yourselves again for those who are watching us on live, and so that you can keep this for your future use as well. So why don't we start here, Mr. Director Figo.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you, Quest, once again. Thank you guys for watching this film. My name is Figo Navarro. I'm creative director of Lyrical Opposition. We're an artist collective. We do film and music throughout the Bay Area, and I had the blessing to be able to direct this film and pass it to Aaliyah.
Hi, I'm Aaliyah, aka Aaliyah, name so nice you gotta say it twice. Poet for the purposes of this film, but I do a lot of things.
Horshet Tuchi Kanag Rakat. My name is Desiree Vigil, and I'm an Ohlone woman from the San Francisco Bay region.
Desiree, for those who might have not been able to see the film yet, would you do another land acknowledgement for us right now? Just where we are here. This is a way to express the real and true history of our land.
Let me stand
Thanks
up.
for letting me put you on the spot like that.
You did, because I don't know the Chocheño word for Novato. Horshet Tuhi Kanag Rakat. My name is Desiree Vigil, and I'm an indigenous woman in the San Francisco Bay region. My tribal section is from the Fremont, Hayward, Oakland area. We go all the way from Mendocino County all the way down to Carmel Valley. We go all the way out to Stockton. That was my family's homeland. Yes?
Closer.
Oh. That was my family's homeland. I am based in Pacifica, California. Yes. But I do have ties to Novato. I do know some family members out here. And just like I said in the film, we were the first people to work the land, love the land, and care for it. And I think as we've gone through, we've forgotten to take care of the land. And we need to go back to that. And how do we do that? We heal by healing the hearts that live here. So, welcome.
Thank you, Desiree. And finally, I invited Nick Morris, who is a local, and I was calling him earlier, a voice and an advocate for those who are unhoused, who's been a partner with us in our church with the ministry that he does called Street Chaplaincy in San Rafael. And so why don't you introduce yourself, because you're going to be engaging in the conversation with us today, too.
Great. My name is Nick Morris, Executive Director at the Street Chaplaincy. We love the Quest and all the congregations that help us fulfill our mission to provide support for people who are experiencing homelessness in San Rafael and Marin County, and help connect them with services. And we're glad to be here. I'm personally passionate about housing and tiny homes, and have served on some committees, and happy to share what I've learned. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so before we jump into questions, I just thought I want to hear just quick observations, and I would also call them affirmations. These aren't questions yet. What did that movie do for you, to you? What do you want to share? Something that stood out to you, something that you remember, something that you were touched by, a word, a phrase, a person. Just shout it out nice and loud.
Memories.
Memories, Jerome said. Thank you.
It softened my heart.
Softened your heart. Yeah.
Beauty in the city.
Beauty in the city. Say it one more time. Inspired. Thank you.
You cannot shame people out of poverty.
Ooh, you cannot shame people out of poverty. Thanks, Lynn.
And bring the land back to the Indians.
Bring the lands back to the Native Americans, the indigenous people. Yes.
Hey, Tony, I'm on one too.
Yes, awesome. We celebrate that. Anyone?
It's coastal Miwa.
Say it one more time.
Novato is the coastal Miwa.
Oh, good. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Acknowledging the land. We should try to incorporate that more into our community faith here. Thank you. Yes. Compassion. Well, I've seen this movie 4 times now, and I really, I was struck by it. Somebody, a mutual friend of ours said, "Oh, Tony, you have to meet Figo. You have to watch this documentary. It's perfect." So if you don't know, I run a film company called Brave Maker. It's a nonprofit in the South Bay, and this is what we like to do. And the quest has been so awesome because they go, "Let's incorporate more of this. This is a part of our faith, is knowing these stories and taking action," which is how we'll end today, is how we are going to take action on this, right? So what was the why behind making this movie for you? Why did you have to make it?
I'm from San Francisco. I'm from the Mission District. Shout out Yee. My mother, born and raised, I always say she's like the real city. Yeah, it's so close to home. My friends' family have been affected by the housing crisis, and I've seen it literally at my front step. So when given the opportunity to direct a story about the housing crisis, it only made sense to bring in community and friends that are already in my circle. So it made sense to reach out to Aaliyah. It made sense to reach out to Ms. Gaga. That's how I know her. We worked with young people during the pandemic on Zoom, and she was teaching Ohlone history to this group of young people. And from there, it just made sense. Like, how do we actually tell this story? Oh, we should probably go to history and see how the first people that were here, Ms. Gaga was, just educated us. And it just wasn't like just jumping in, but she actually gave us education around it prior to making sure we're stepping into understanding the sacredness of it.
I'll tell you what I appreciated so much. I have a affinity toward wanting to help and not be a problem. Sometimes it's white savior thing. It's like I can help anybody. I'm putting a hand out. I'm pulling people up. What I appreciate is the groundedness in the stories, just humanizing people with creativity, with the spoken word, with beautiful visuals as well. So I really think you did a marvelous job with that. The last song too was amazing. We have good music on Sunday here, by the way. So if you like good music, you come on Sunday. And if Matt is ever gone, maybe we can get that band to so bring him in. But I also just the image of you on the coast, and that's the image of the poster for the movie. I thought was really a good, just a great image for what you're trying to do. And I'm learning this. I'm trying to use my pronouns more because I know that's inclusive. When I speak or do podcasts, I'm learning, not everybody could see. So I want to be doing descriptions, right? As an indigenous person, it's not your job to make non-indigenous people aware, but I thank you for what you're doing. And we want to do better by you and by indigenous communities. So I'm just, as a statement, trying to learn to do better and to be better. What is some of the kind of takeaways? We're going to get to the housing stuff, because that's a big takeaway, is how we can do better or help people find housing. But what are you seeing as you're sharing this? And you're sharing this a lot if you follow them on social media. They have a lot of screenings and talkbacks going. Can you talk about some of the resounding conversations that are coming up from the work that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one of the questions that comes up a lot of times is like, how do we get involved? How do we help? And a big part of our process is getting community members and leaders that are already doing the work. So thank you, Tony, for just bringing someone who's already doing the work, a prime example. And that's literally the reason and purpose behind it. How do we start the conversation and actually begin doing the work in actionable items, right? What does that look like to have, as his name is Jake, have tiny homes built in parking lots at churches? What does it take, and a lot of the redlining that goes around with that. So that's a big one for us. So we like to have resources and information around it. So the Firm Foundation is one of the folks that we're connected with that we're always like, go see their work, see what they're doing, get involved.
Okay, so how can people get involved here? They're in this building here in Marin County. You're doing that. People don't know our history. That senior center or residence across the street was actually built in the past 5 years, before I even came, because our church sold property, sold land, so that they could build residences for those aging, citizens in our community. We do have space. We're always wondering, like, what can we do? Our church has a heart for those who are out on the street. What are practical things that are happening in Marin County right now?
Well, there's definitely a push towards finding land for tiny homes, safe parking. I sat on a committee with the city of San Rafael, and we looked at congregations, and there are only a handful of congregations that meet the criteria. You have to be near a transportation hub, easy access to food, that kind of thing. But one of the things you can do is explore, because the county is looking for spots. There's money there to build tiny homes. The biggest obstacle is the land. And we spent 4 years meeting every month. We had a minister, we had a city planner, and the director of homelessness in San Rafael, and we queried all the congregations. We had researched models that worked all over the country and around the Bay Area, and we couldn't find one congregation that was in a position or willing to give up some space to do this. And it's being done in other places. So what we can do is, when I was walking over here, I saw that little patch of land right here as I walked in, and I'm like, man, I could see a few tiny homes there. and it's as simple. There's a congregation in Sebastopol, and they have Calistoga huts in their parking lot. It started with safe parking, and now they have Calistoga huts. And one of the keys is working with government and providers to be able to provide the services needed, and that helps overcome all the resistance that we're going to get from the neighborhood and from the people around. But people's hearts open after they see that it's working well, and they come and they get to know their neighbors, because we're all neighbors. And so if you guys are open to that, I've already mentioned you to the director of homelessness in Marin County, Gary Naja-Reese, and we talk about you guys all the time. So we'd like to start that discussion. So that's one thing you can do. Another thing is just, somebody said compassion. Connect with somebody on the street if you feel safe. Acknowledge them, sit and have some coffee with them. It really is a two-way relationship, and that's what we do at the Street Chaplaincy. So,
how many of you in the Quest have served with the Street Chaplaincy? Yeah, and the serving and the meals. Yeah, it's great. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, so thank you for that. Let's hear from you all. Do you have questions? Megan?
I love the work that you guys are all doing, the work that you're talking about, the fact that being made is going to be parking all this any moment. Are you seeing that there are ways that, you mentioned the need for the wraparound type services, right? That it's connected to mental health, it's connected to physical health, and there's all these different pieces to what makes for well-being, and so and part of that is policy. So have you found places where this kind of work, these kinds of creative storytelling, etc., are you seeing it push the needle in the policy arena at all?
well, there's
Go ahead.
there is. I mentioned the Figo. There's a place in Oakland called Youth Spirit Artworks that's doing a great job of that. I know the executive director who helped spearhead this tiny home project, and really, it takes a lot of work. You really have to build a coalition between government, faith-based congregations, and the neighbors. And so, that it takes a lot of work, but they are pushing the needle. There are places that are doing that. And as you said, it's so important. I've been meeting with someone every week who just got into housing. She'd been on the streets, under the freeway, under 101, and she is a bright light. And she's like, man, it's hard to be living indoors. It's like, man, all of a sudden, like, there's quiet, and I have to sit with my feelings, because when you're out on the street, you're always on the move. You're always sourcing food and being hypervigilant, to keep yourself safe. And people, people are lonely, and then they have to sit with their thoughts. So that's where community is so important. And I think congregations can play a vital role in helping create that community so people feel loved and connected. And that helps people stay in housing.
Okay, Cliff, you have a question, or are you going to?
Yeah, I have a question. I didn't want you to have to go all the way back there. So one of the underlying themes was a timeline and how long it takes, sometimes, up to 60 months, 5 years for some projects. And the shortest term we heard was 18 months. So there's a huge need for fast-tracking these projects, especially with the pre-made tiny homes, to get them from a concept to, yes, they can be put on our property, to having them brought over, set up, hooked up with utilities, etc., and moved in. If that could be shortened to 90 or 120 days, okay, then we're talking about making a huge difference. When projects can happen that way because they're fast-tracked by the government. So I don't know how it could happen, but I know that we're involved with talking to the community leaders, city leaders, etc. But maybe it needs to be lifted to the Assembly, the Senate, to actually come from Sacramento and fast-track these things, to give it the green light it truly deserves and needs. The points were well made. Tony, you've seen this 4 times. I saw it once, but I cried 4 times during it. It's really important that it doesn't just stay a conversation that kind of drags on, but that we can focus. And so you're talking money, I can see it, but we also heard from the community that there is money already. So now we're battling time. And one of the gentlemen in the movie talked about we need to make this happen quick because it's getting worse. So in order to make the dent that needs to be made, we have to not only keep up with how it's spreading, but we really need to focus on the timeline. What can we do? How can that be addressed is really what the question is. And what can we as the community do to help that along to be a much faster process? Thank you.
What can we do? More practical things. What can be done?
Well, I mean, there is, you mentioned, how can we fast track this? The state passed something, AB something, there's always AB, and it's helping make it easier for congregations and faith communities to develop these projects on their land. So I know I'm finding, sitting in city council meetings and meeting with folks in government, that there's a willingness there and there are the funds there, and I would say now the ball's in our court or your court, to make it happen. There's a willingness, there's a funding, and there's a great need, as we know. So it can happen, but we have to start the conversation.
The microphone is there if anybody else wants to come and grab it or pick up. But let me just say, real quick, Desiree, before you do, one of the things that we as a church, how many of you would, and this is just no shame in this, but how many of you actively are a part of a faith community that meets on a Sunday in a building that's like a churchy building? Raise your hand if you do. Okay. That is a rarity because the numbers are decreasing. Many people are not doing such things, and buildings are not as full as they once were. And so this is a really prime time. In fact, our church building houses 2 or 3 different small businesses, another faith community. We now have a preschool. So it's looking forward and going, how can we use these buildings to be more of a community support? How can we use our parking lots? Now is the time, because some of these buildings are not going to be sustainable if we don't get creative when they're trying to save it. Like, let's get more people here on a Sunday. This is my opinion. I don't think that's going to work. We have to find alternative ways to use these spaces and also label that as the work of the church, too. Desiree, go ahead.
So a couple of things. My goal in my career is archaeology and bringing my ancestors back to our homeland in Fremont, where we have a cemetery. I understand the months of cycles of trying to get a building built, housing built. I've seen it happen myself because I'm there before the building gets built. The best way, in my thought, is we have government, we have mayors who we vote on,
voting. So when it's time to vote, you vote for the right laws, the right measures that actually change or do something. You can actually, thank you can actually go onto the websites and find your mayor's email address, your senator's email addresses that we vote into that office, and write to them and email them and tell them what your concerns are and what you want to see on ballots. I'd rather see 10 homes, 10 tiny homes, than 10 more Starbucks. Pete's Coffees. What's that store she said on Whole Foods? Come on. All we have to do is vote. I'm huge on, it drives my husband crazy. Crazy. Because I say the only way we're going to change anything is if we vote.
Phil?
I actually want to add to that point. My mom also works in policy, and not completely, but she is an advocate for birthing rights. She's a doula and has a nonprofit called Sister Web. And so she's always telling me to remind my friends, especially people of my demographic. Mind you, I'm 23. So my demographic is a very not underappreciated, but I think underestimated age demographic. There's a lot of us, my age and older and younger, that could do the same. There's exactly, underutilized. Thank you. We're underutilized. Each and every single one of us. There's about, and I literally did the math as I was like scanning, so if I was eyeballing you, that was why. There's about 45, 50 of us in this room. If each and every single one of us wrote a letter to the Senate, to the legislators, to every single person who is able to make and impact laws, told them what we wanted, and then told somebody else to do that, it would spread like wildfire. We have the power because we have the numbers. There's only a handful of them in comparison to how many millions of people there are in the Bay Area. If you think about it, you have the power, you just have to use it. So, use your power.
All right, we got time for about 2 more questions. Go ahead, Phil.
All right. My name is Phil Roundtree, and I've lived in this community for 41 years. And for the last 35 years, there has been an organization in Marin County and based here in Novato called Homeward Bound, which has literally housed several thousand people. And they're also experts in negotiating city governments and distraught neighbors and things like that, and getting a lot of permanent housing built. And I'm just sort of wondering, we're sort of talking about starting from scratch here when there is an organization housed right in our community that is really good at doing what we're doing. Why are we not talking about them?
Well, we're part of Whole Person Care, and we work with Homeward Bound, and they do a great job. I mean, they have developed most of the housing stock in the county. And the greatest need right now is that's more permanent supportive. I mean, there's permanent supportive housing, but you know, as you see, the numbers have increased. The county has stepped up, getting people into housing. Everybody's working together much better than they were in the past. But I sort of feel, and I don't have the exact numbers, that for every person we house, there are like 2 or 3 more people that land on the street. So we say we're going to end homelessness, but we're seeing people who now have full-time jobs, who are living out of their cars, seniors. There's always been a certain population that have been experiencing homelessness, but in the past, at least in my lifetime, it's been easier for people to get out of homelessness. Now it's like people are just falling into homelessness, and it's so hard to get out. So Homeward Bound is doing a great job, and the other organizations as well, but this is a humanitarian crisis. And we need like triage, right? And like having some safe parking spaces and some Calistoga huts, interim shelter to help people get into case management and then fast track them through the process is key. And that's where the congregations and the faith-based organizations come in. It really takes a village, and it's not just organizations and government doing it. It's all of us.
Cool, last question, Jerome.
Hi, I'm Jerome. I'm second generation San Francisco native from Lakeview, which is known to some people as the Ingleside District. I just want to say thank you for really portraying San Francisco in this documentary. It hit very close to home, something that I experienced as well, growing up in the city and being pushed out of the city that I only knew growing up. I was someone who actually experienced being unhoused, went through a whole landlord situation, came back to my apartment one day and was just locked out. All my stuff is outside of the garage, and I had no place to go, and then have to get on GA and unemployment and such, and living in my car on Ocean Beach for just numerous months, you know, and having to try to figure out of how I'm going to get back on my feet, how I can get housing, and there was just no opportunity at that time. You know, we're talking about probably like a decade ago or 13 years ago. And there was just nothing, you know, it was just really hard, and it's just very difficult going to the GA building, you know, down on Mission, and just trying to figure everything out. And, you know, thank God I, you know, survived through all that, and, you know, battled through that fire, battled through that adversity, and such, and I'm here today. But it still sucks because I'm not in the city where, you know, I want to be, you know. But I say that to say this. What are what are like some of the supervisors doing, you know, for the city, you know, because it does start small, right? It starts within our neighborhood leaders, you know, like our supervisors and such. And I remember just this past Friday, I went to the Giants home opener, and my good friend who I grew up with, E.J. Jones, he's running for supervisor in our neighborhood this year. And he's my age, and he's really about the community and pushing forward. And I remember we were talking just really briefly, and I was asking him, like, you know, hey, what's going on with the city? What's going on with our neighborhood? And he's like, Rome, like, I'm just telling you, man, like, it's a lot. It's a lot, but that's why I'm running for supervisor, to make that change. And I would love to connect with you, you and your crew and whatnot, to make a connection with him and make a connection with some other leaders, you know, in the community who you may not know of, and really get some stuff, you know, off the ground to really help people, because people are struggling. People are trying to find their identity, or people are just trying to make a comeback, you know, in their life. So I just want to say thank you once again for this beautiful documentary. Please let me know where I can get the link to stream this and push it out to all the networks that I know, and really get this, put this on a mass level, because it's very important for people to see this and identify with this documentary as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Jerome. So final words I would say is, you know, I've known Jerome for a couple years now. I didn't even know that story, right? So it doesn't look a certain way, right? Being homeless or unhoused or financially challenged or food insecure, it does not look a certain way. So we have a lot of work to do to growing our compassion, and as it was called out, and empathy. But I think it starts with conversations. It can also feel very overwhelming. We're leaving today going, oh my gosh, you know, there's this organization and that organization, and you know, we need this, and we need that. Oh, but it's just like small steps forward. And I'll tell you, from one of the leaders of the church here, the Quest, our leadership team is seriously meeting on a regular basis, talking about what can we do with our little land, with our little resources. What can we do? So if you're a regular part of this community, we invite you to keep thinking and praying for that. If you're not a regular part, come visit us anytime. But do something. Go from today, talk to Nick and Figo and Aaliyah and my Desiree, I was blanking, Miss Gaga. Talk to these advocates and creative people and see what they're doing. And I know if you follow them online too, they have a newsletter, and you can find out when the next screening is. It's not going to be online probably for some time until they figure that out. But can we give them one more round of applause? Awesome. Thank you so much, you all. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Before you leave, you all can take a seat. We have a couple quick announcements. Go ahead. You can sit. I just want to tell people our regular things are happening today. Father Phil, who he calls him, will do our kids' church, which happens here at noon, and it's a gathering for kids 0 to 9 to learn about faith. Phil does that every first Sunday of the month. We also have our hiking club that is, contemplative spirituality, that happens online via Zoom. If you are somebody who would like to dabble into faith conversations and or prayer and or just a peaceful contemplative, meditative hour and a half. This is something that is available. You can go to our website at wearethequest.org. There's a calendar of events, and this happens every other week. And then every other week, it's for LGBT people. So you can see the schedule on the wearethequest.org. Hiking. Yes, it's coming up this Saturday, the second Saturday of every month. Where's Irma Mannion? Irma Mannion, our amazing Irma, takes people on 25-mile hikes every Saturday. Just kidding. It feels like that, I was told. But if you like to hike somewhere from around 3 to sometimes longer, talk to Irma. That's happening this Saturday at 9 a.m. And then finally, if you are in any way wanting to give and support these efforts, we never pass plates or buckets. We have boxes at the back of the wall. We are going to give a stipend to Lyrical Opposition for their time and effort today. We want to resource people. We want to support the arts. We care about those who are unhoused, and that's one way you can do it, is to financially, tax deductibly give through the Quest with your giving in the back, or online at wearethequest.org/giving, or Venmo at wearethequest. Thank you so much for being here. That's all we got. Hang out if you'd like, meet people, and we'll see you soon, or when we see you. All right, God bless you all.